Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. I'm Shane Masters. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Not surprised the reaction from the National Security Minister to the opposition's decision. Why the Senate President is calling for... And later in sports, Jamaica pulls out of 2021 Squash World Cup in New Zealand. Here now are the details. Not surprised the reaction from the National Security Minister, Dr. Horace Chang, to the opposition's decision to not support the extension of a state of emergency in the Senate last evening. We have extensive coverage of this matter this afternoon, including the final moments of yesterday's marathon sitting of the Senate. But first, the police in Westmoreland and the security minister are livid. Cody Barrett begins our coverage.
The states of emergency across 7 police divisions will come to an end on Saturday. Head of the Westmoreland Police Division, Superintendent Robert Gordon, is disappointed that the measure in the parish will end. He said the security measure has significantly reduced murders.
There's a lot of talk about the SOE doesn't work, but the reality is, for the statistician, fine, it's okay to look at numbers. But for me, my team and the families that would have lost loved ones, their lives lost. So everyone that dies is someone's loved one, and they might seek to find different ways to treat with that loss. And unfortunately, reprisal is one such. So the more lives that we prevent from being lost at any point will have that domino effect of less life being lost going forward.
National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang, in the meantime, says special attention will be given to Westmoreland as the police try to contain the high crime rate.
The current situation we have 5 under 18 young males charged with murder in Westmoreland. It's a very difficult parish, and the level of violence is of concern, and we'll keep working at it. We have given the Western people a commitment. We're going to work with them. And we have added manpower will help significantly. So they expect it to rise to the same level, but it's indeed of concern to us in that area. It may be at this moment one of the most greatest concerns.
As to the defeat of the SOE extension, Dr. Chang says the gains which have been made under the crime measure since November 14 will be utilized.
Security teams are working hard at that game. They'll win the battle, but it will be a lot tougher fight without the tool of the SOE. It is unfortunate that the opposition doesn't see those communities associated as worthy of that kind of tool, but that's their choice.
Cody Barrett, TVJ.
In the meantime, Senate President Tom Tavares Finson is calling for changes to the constitutional provision which allows a minority of senators from the opposition to discontinue a state of emergency. Speaking in the Senate late last night, Mr. Tavares Finson slammed the opposition senators for not voting to extend the SOEs. Vashon Brown covered the marathon Senate sitting, which lasted for about 9 hours.
The government failed to get the Senate's approval for an extension of the states of emergency in 7 police divisions. The 13 government senators voted for the extension. 3 opposition senators voted against extending the SOEs: Peter Bunting, Damian Crawford, and Flood Morris. 5 senators were absent. The government needed the support of at least 1 opposition senator to secure the 2/3 majority required to have the resolution approved. Senate President Tom Tavares Finson was not pleased.
As a consequence of a particular provision in our Constitution, the matter came to the Senate and required 1 vote. In the upshot, 3 unelected members of this House have voted against this resolution. No account has been taken of the elected representatives from Hanover, St. James, and Westmoreland, all of whom supported the state of emergency. Where is that an expression of democracy?
He blasted the opposition senators, arguing that they've put the country in grave danger.
3 unelected members of this Senate have put the security of this nation on a knife's edge.
The Senate President says it's time for changes to the provision requiring the government to get opposition support to extend states of emergency.
This country needs to revisit this provision because it flies it flies in the face of everything that is sensible. And for those of you who don't know why this provision is here and why it is Senator Brown and Senator Bunting continue to call the name of the Right Honorable Edward Seaga, that provision was put here because of the illegal, corrupt 1976 state of emergency.
In the meantime, leader of government business in the Senate, Kamina Johnson-Smith, said it was a sad day for Jamaica.
In particular, it is a sad day for the people who live in the communities covered by the 7 divisions of the state of public emergency. We convey our apologies to the security forces who recommended and who have been utilizing the space and who had hope that the debate today would rise to the level of reason and regard for the professional advice given and the realities on the ground.
Vashon Brown, TVJ News.
And the opposition has responded to comments that its lack of voting to extend the states of emergency will be political suicide. Despite using its majority to pass the resolution to extend the states of emergency until February next year in the lower house on Tuesday, the government was dealt a blow in the Senate on Thursday night. The recommendation for the extension of a crime measure was flatly rejected by opposition senators. But some have suggested that voting along party lines on the matter could jeopardize the People's National Party on the political front, while others have argued that blocking the SOEs would be tantamount to political suicide. But leader of opposition business in the Senate, Peter Bunting, sees it differently.
I don't think ever taking a principled position to defend people's rights is political suicide. What the government has tried, and even the polls show that the support for states of emergency have been declining since it was first declared. But what they tried was to conflate two things and create a false dichotomy. And here it is. Mm-hmm. If you want police and soldiers in your community, then you need a state of emergency declared. That is palpably false.
Now, there have also been concern that the position of the opposition was forced on its members by the party president, Mark Golding, and Senator Bunting, who is also the spokesman on national security. But Senator Bunting says not so.
The opposition to this in the party is overwhelming. It's hardly a position of one or two persons. We see this declaration as really just a diversion, a PR move to mask the government's failure to address the problem of crime.
He further pointed out that even though persons of interest may be captured in the SOEs, not many will be convicted.
In 2021, while murders are up by 11%, 128 additional persons murdered versus 2020 at this time. The clear-up rate for murder has fallen from 49% last year to only 38% this year. The arrest for murder, again, down by 11%, from 617 at this time last year to 551. What the data is showing is that there's a breakdown in the investigations, in the intelligence gathering, and in the case preparations. And this shows that the states of emergency have tended to encourage sloppy law enforcement.
Senator Bunting was speaking on the morning agenda on Power 106. And it's time for a break here on the Midday News. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. The Westmoreland police have taken into custody persons of interest in relation to last night's quadruple shooting in the community of Hertford, which left a 17-year-old boy dead. He has been identified as Delano Spencer. The other 3 people, including a 4-year-old girl, are in stable condition in hospital. The little girl was shot in the mouth. Head of the Area 1 Police Headquarters Assistant Commissioner Clifford Chambers says the police are investigating whether last night's attack is a reprisal for an incident that occurred 2 years ago.
Whilst much cannot be said at this time, it is important to note that the home that was attacked is said to be that of a man who was recently acquitted of murder in the Westmoreland Circuit Court. This, along with other investigative leads, are being followed, and as we speak, the Westmoreland Police are actively engage in an operation where persons of interest are now being taken into custody for further interrogation.
The police say a man from the community was killed in 2019, and it's believed that the alleged shooter is a relative of the family that was attacked. It's reported that about 9:20, a section of a two-bedroom board house was set on fire in Hertford district. An alarm was raised. Occupants of the house were then shot. The teenager was shot in the upper body. He was pronounced dead at hospital. The country's COVID-19 positivity rate jumped to 12.4% on Thursday, with 64 new cases reported from 621 samples. Among the positive cases is a one-year-old child. The overall case count now stands at 91,026. The death toll also increased to 9 from 2 the previous day, pushing the death toll to 2,376. 174 more people are hospitalized with the virus. 12 patients are in critical condition and 29 are severely ill. There have been 795 active cases on the island in the last 2 weeks. 86 people have recovered from the respiratory illness in the last 24 hours. The country's overall recovery count is 62,257. And it's now time for the top regional and international stories with Sandy Williams.
In regional news, Nicaragua will allow Cubans to enter the country without visas, a step announced at a time when the island's government is battling a severe economic crisis and growing popular discontent. No visa policy for Cuban citizens will take effect on Monday. According to officials, the measure is due to the high number of visa applications from Cubans with relatives in Nicaragua, adding that the new policy seeks to promote commercial exchange, tourism, and humanitarian family relations. Experts and activists warn that the elimination of the visa requirement in a country that is part of a land route to the U.S. border with Mexico could fuel a new Cuban exodus. On the international scene, more countries are tightening their travel restrictions after the discovery of a new coronavirus variant in South Africa earlier this week. The UK, Singapore, and Japan are among those rushing to stricter quarantine measures and banning flights from South Africa and neighboring countries. The UK is proposing to ban flights from the region across the whole bloc. Scientists still have much to learn about the variant, but there are concerns it may be the worst yet. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Sandy Williams.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report. Simon Preston is standing by.
Welcome back. It's now time for Midday Sports. I'm Simon Preston. The Jamaica Squash Association has confirmed that Jamaica have pulled out from competing in the 2021 Squash World Cup in New Zealand next month. The decision has been made as the national team did not get enough time together to prepare for the tournament. Despite not competing on the global stage, 9-time national and Caribbean champion Chris Binney says the right decision was made.
I think it is disappointing not to be representing Jamaica again this year at the World Team Championships, but all in all, I think over the past year or two, we have to kind of be grateful for what we have. Sadly, I don't think any of us have been playing enough to warrant us putting on a good show. I know in Jamaica it's been very difficult for those guys to get good competition and tournaments, leaving the country to play some of the best players. And even playing in Jamaica has been, limited.
Jamaica finished 18th out of 23 countries at the 2019 edition of the Squash World Cup in Washington, D.C. To football we go now, as 2019 winners Jamaica College will battle St. George's College in schoolboy football action this afternoon. JC are 5th in Group A on 4 points, while St. George's are 3rd on 6 points. Kick-off is at 3 o'clock. In other group games, Charlie Smith will battle Calabar at 1:15, while at 3 o'clock Kingston High will entertain Bridgeport. The Jamaica Esports Initiative have welcomed the news of the possibility of the sport being introduced in the 2026 edition of the Commonwealth Games. CEO of the JEI, Gregor Moore, is thrilled with what lies ahead.
we are excited for the possibility of that in 2026. And with the grant that we recently received from the Jamaica Olympic Association, it will definitely help us to prepare. So we are excited about it at the JEI, and we're just waiting for the announcement of the disciplines so we can prepare ourselves.
Veteran national esports player Andrew Johnson is hoping the international recognition will be replicated locally.
For me, that's extremely exciting news. My only hope is that local entities will recognize the international interest in esports and begin to look at it, examine it, and include esports in local events.
Jamaica are currently ranked third in the Americas region, behind the United States and Canada in esports. Esports was the fastest growing sport in 2020 globally. And that is it for your Midday Sports Report. I'm Simon Preston. O'Shane, it is over to you.
Thanks, Simon. And that's the Midday News. I'm O'Shane Masters. Join us at 7 for Primetime News on behalf of the news, sports and production teams. Good afternoon.